Happy Monday. Today on The News and Why It Matters, CNN's Brian Stelter proves he may not be a reliable source after all. We're going to have to check that out. Also, the latest on the trade talks with China. A lot coming up. Starts right now. Welcome to The News and Why It Matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by Mr. Glenn Beck himself, Aaron Colin from theblaze.com, and we are joined, the newbie on the show, her maiden voyage.
Her first time.
Her first time. She's like, is it always this cold in here? Yeah. Katie Williams, U.S. Army veteran.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We got a lot to get into, but first we want to thank our sponsor, iTarget Pro. So Katie, you're a veteran.
I am.
You're familiar with shooting weapons,
yes,
right?
Dry fire.
Yeah.
How important is trigger control in dry fire?
It's very important.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how much it changes your patterns when you don't breathe properly or pull your trigger right.
And when you hear that click when you're releasing it, most people are like fire, and then they release it.
They let it go very quickly.
Yeah, but when you can just release it slowly and you hear that click, it makes so much difference. And that's what iTarget Pro can help you find. Because you're not shooting any ammunition. It's going to save you a buttload of money. You can do it at home, and it's very accurate. You shoot it at a target, and it registers. You put the iPhone up by the target, and it registers right where you're hitting. So you're just doing it without ammunition, which is a great way to really learn trigger control.
You can get 10% off right now and free shipping if you use promo code NEWS. That is itargetpro.com with promo code NEWS. So, Brian Stelter at CNN.
I think he's gone insane. I mean that sincerely. I think he has lost his mind. Brian is a guy who I would say was a semi kind of friend. I mean, we never hung out, but I had respect for him in the business, and he had respect for me. He was working, I think, at TV Newser in 2006 when I first went to CNN. And he was a guy I always trusted because he would take the story and he would print what I felt was the right side. He would print that. If he found somebody else, he would print what they said. And he was always right down the line. He has gone insane at CNN. And I think it's because that's a massive, massive staff. And I remember what it felt like to be alone there. There were no friends. I'd get into an elevator. I'm not kidding you. I'd get into an elevator and people would stop talking. It was 21, I think it was 21 floors or 12 floors. I can't remember.
Well, we do that with you here now.
Yeah, I know. But everyone would do that like, ha, 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 ha. It was crazy.
That Glenn guy.
Yeah, you were alone if you were a conservative there. Yeah. And I think it just feeds on itself. And the mental illness, I really believe mental illness that is happening now because of Donald Trump is showing itself. Brian Stelter wrote that he had just left over the weekend. So his wife was pregnant, going to go have a baby. So he went, and he comes back and he said, I really have some perspective. And I'm thinking, good. All right.
Maybe he grew up, maybe change his opinion.
And here's his perspective. Watch.
I think that medicalizing politics has three very dire consequences. The first is that it stigmatizes the mentally ill. I've known thousands of patients. Almost all of them have been well-behaved, well-mannered, good people. Trump is none of these. Lumping the mentally ill with Trump is a terrible insult to the mentally ill, and they have enough problems and stigma as it is. The second issue is that calling Trump crazy hides the fact that we're crazy for having elected him, and even crazier for allowing his crazy policies to persist. Trump is as destructive a person in this century as Hitler, Stalin, and Mao were in the last century. He may be responsible for many more million deaths than they were.
Okay, let me just get some perspective here. First of all, if that guy is still practicing medicine, he should lose his license. It is the most irresponsible. He's never met him. He's never talked to him. It's irresponsible. And we all knew that, in days of journalism past, we all knew that. You don't psychoanalyze somebody you don't know. It's irresponsible. Second of all, this is how bright this guy is. He says Trump will be may be responsible for many more millions dead than Adolf Hitler, 12 million, Stalin, about 50 million, and Mao, as high as 90 million. And he's going to do more than those guys did? In what? His last year in office or maybe the next possibly, 5 years?
Well, I mean, I'd like to know what those deaths would be. What is he, what, from climate change, from, kids in cages on the border? Like, where are they attributing these deaths to?
What bothers me so much is I look at Donald Trump and I think, okay, Donald Trump, he does like the dictatorial kind of guy, okay? He likes Kim Jong-il. He likes somebody who's just like, I'm going to take care of myself. He likes that. Yeah. I don't think he's a dictator. But I could see him be a guy when the economy collapses, if it did in his term, as a guy who could become very FDR, okay? And we could go very socialist light. And he could do those things. But I don't hear anyone, they're all afraid of that. They're all afraid of somebody who's going to take the reins. And I'm afraid of that. I don't like that. But on the other side, we have people who are actually saying that they like the policies that were enacted, whether they like it or not, whether they want to say it or not. The policies they're asking for were enacted by Hitler, by Stalin, and by Mao. When they don't work, people who are attracted to that system have to eliminate people who are standing in the way. And when I hear the socialist Democrats talk about by any means necessary, that's what that means. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not going to say that those guys are going to create millions of dead. I don't think that they're crazy because I don't know them. Mm-hmm. I think they're misguided. Since when is one side big government that has proven itself to be deadly to people not terrifying when another guy is totally terrifying? Oh, and by the way, who's ever in office, let's give him or her all of our guns.
Yeah. Aaron, zero pushback.
Zero pushback, no follow-up questions about how Trump was going to kill all these people. I'd like to know. I'd like to see that coming. But it's interesting how that guy's supposed to be a psychiatrist, but that sounded just like typical left-wing political analysis. There was no professional thing about it. He's just doing the same talking points that everybody else on CNN is going to do. And I think Stelter said he didn't hear what was saying, and I don't know if I believe that. He looked like he was.
He said when he got back, he has a new perspective that Donald Trump is crazy. So he went out and I'm sure found this guy. This guy's not in the news anywhere. This guy is in the news for being on CNN saying those things. I believe the president's crazy. Go find somebody, some psychiatrist that will say that. Oh, we got this guy. Good. That's how that happens. You don't go on the air with somebody who has that opinion and not know it. Not at CNN.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know.
Well, and he was conversing with, he was having a back and forth.
It didn't look like there was any gap in like the technology, like his earpiece went out or didn't hear what he said. It looked like he was really locked in and focused to what he said, and he just went along with it and then went on with the interview as if he didn't just say that hundreds of millions of people were about to die because of our president.
And I think the problem is that no psychiatrist actually just says, hey, this person is crazy. That's not a diagnosis, right? There's always something behind it. And you can't psychoanalyze somebody over what you see in the news or on TV or anything like that. He probably has never met Donald Trump.
Think of this. This is red flag. This is what red flagging can do. Somebody like that, hey, I'm the head of psychiatry of Duke University. This guy's crazy. He shouldn't be trusted with guns. In the wrong society with the wrong leadership, that's exactly how it works. You lose your rights.
I wonder, Glenn, is this the way that the media is treating Donald Trump? Do you think that that's going to actually inspire more support for him? Because I can't imagine that the average American is going to listen to that and actually think it's
done
true.
With that. They're done with all of this. I really believe there is a real fatigue of Donald Trump bashing and of Donald Trump. His tweets, when he's doing stuff. Now, I know a lot of people who are big supporters are like, would you please stop? What are you doing? Especially trying to stop it. So there's a real fatigue on both. What's going to make the difference is any global unrest, real serious global unrest, Iran does something, Europe begins to crater, China makes a move towards Taiwan, anything like that, people are going to want stability. If the economy starts to tank and really hurts people, you have to understand, I think it's the Russell 2000, there's the Dow, and I think it's the Russell. Nobody's ever heard of the Russell because that's small and medium-sized businesses. That's not doing well. It hasn't done well for many years. The average 60% of these small businesses are saying, I'm still losing money, I'm still hurting. Farmers are really hurting. If that doesn't change, or if it gets worse, the president's going to be in trouble. He's got to solve the China deal and get it off of the table. He's got to revive the engine.
Katie, I want to ask you the same question. I know that you are a supporter of President Trump.
Yeah, I am.
And you do have the perspective of coming from, your former military. What do you see? Do you see all of this jargon on CNN helping him at all?
I don't want to make it a point to listen to anything CNN has, because I think it's the culture itself there at CNN. Like you were talking about how he just goes crazy. And I think if you're in that environment for so long, you tend to actually believe the same things that you're constantly hearing over and over. Whatever gets repeated gets remembered. So
if you think that's crazy, you should hear the conversations that they have that aren't on the air.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean that.
Yeah, I don't doubt. But I don't know. I think as far as from a military perspective, and then also from president supporter, I don't know if the people in my lane are no longer supporters, but I think you're right, definitely, where people are just so tired of, the president bashing. And then, yes, the president sometimes gets on Twitter and I don't understand what goes through his mind before he says things, Yeah. Like I put some thought into my tweets before I go out there. I'm like, well, can I piss anybody off with this,
He likes chaos.
He
and
does,
that's the problem. Chaos is bad all around. If the president could have self-control and just say, they say some crazy things, just for the next, 12 months, 13 months, I think he'd walk through with a landslide. Yeah. People need to know that everything is stable and he's okay.
Yeah. There's some people who are just not comfortable when things are peaceful and when things are stable, and he's one of those people.
He's one of those.
Yeah, I think that too. I think if anything's too quiet for too long, he has to come up and say something. He's like, hey, remember, I'm still here. Don't forget me.
All right, more to come. Back in a minute.
Yeah, but it's built who he is.
Yeah.
It's been good for him. It's bad.
Beijing has signaled that they are looking to end the trade war calmly, in their words. Glenn, I know you covered this big time on your radio show this morning. Everyone should go and check that out. What hour was it?
It was hour 2. It was hour 2 on what the economy means, what's happening with China, what some of the stuff that's happening with China that people forget. First of all, 2008, China said, and I've never, ever seen any country ever say this to any president, but they said to President Obama, they bought a bunch of our bonds, our debt, and they said in a statement, do not dishonor our investment. This is a culture that is run on honor. Think of what you will. The Chinese believe they act with honor. The people do. It's important because that's why Pearl Harbor was bombed. Most people don't know this, but when Pearl Harbor was bombed, that was for an offense from Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, we were the bank of the world. We said, everybody sent World War I, everybody send us your gold. We'll send you money, we'll send you bullets, we'll send you arms. You send us your gold, because they didn't have any cash that was worth anything. So we had this huge pile of gold after World War II. So Woodrow Wilson becomes very arrogant and says, you know what, England, no more trade with Japan. And they said, no, you don't understand. That's a really important trade partner for us, especially in that part of the world, and they will find that to be a slight on them. So Woodrow Wilson said, I don't care. You're either going to do business with us or business with Japan. They had no choice. They said, okay, we'll pick you. They told Japan the United States asked us to pick, and we had to pick the United States. Dishonor. So when they had the chance in 41 to come after us, that's what that was about. That was one of the big parts of it, was really, America, you dishonored us. Same thing with China. Donald Trump operates in a world where he can say anything about anybody, okay, and dishonor anybody. I mean, I'm surprised he does. Maybe we should look it up. Maybe he has trashed Mother Teresa at some point, but he only does it as a negotiating thing. He only does it to get the upper hand, and he doesn't mean it. He doesn't think about it the next day. The Chinese do. China is running a debt of 480 plus percent of their GDP. They are way out of line. They can't function over if their GDP is less than 8% or 6% growth. They say they're at 6.2. Our numbers look like it's closer to 4. They're hemorrhaging. They're hemorrhaging. That's what the president is muscling. But they don't play by our rules. Back last year, we were going through the People's Communist, record book, their budgets and their central bank's budgets, if you will. And on page 66, we found that they had printed $25 trillion. 25, no, it was 50. It was 50. $50 trillion, okay? So all of the money in the world in circulation is about 60, okay? So they printed $50 trillion. They gave 24 trillion of that, or 25 trillion of that, to their own corporations and said, just keep running on this funny money, because it was all being destroyed. So just keep running. They took the other, and they put at least $16 trillion into our stock market. So when we say, oh, they had, China has us because they held 1.6 trillion, and still today, 1.6 trillion in our bonds. If they sell our bonds, we're screwed. Okay, that's what everybody said. They have anywhere between 12 and 16 trillion in our stock market. You hit the sell button and it's over. And by the way, they did it all through offshore shell corporations. So we don't know who owns what. We don't know what they have. And if you think that the Chinese won't do it because, well, they'd lose too much, A, it's funny money. B, they're running a deficit of 480% of their GDP. They know it's over. If the question is, do I let the United States have any kind of power over me as I'm going down? You're crazy to think they'll let us stand.
Yeah.
They'll take the entire world down with them, because then it's a level playing field.
Aaron, you want to weigh in?
I think that's what people don't understand when they're evaluating this trade war with China. They don't see how we're tied with them in ways that are sort of behind the scenes. And when you look at it and you say, well, we're going to get tough on China and we're winning, but there are real effects for real people in the United States that are coming as a result of this. And there's also, like you said, the very real risk of what they might do if things really start going wrong. And so we can't just look at it like, yeah, we're going to beat China up, we're going to win this trade war. Like there's casualties that will come as a result of that we have to be careful about the way that we handle this as a nation.
There is a pattern, and it starts with a collapse of an economy. Like a banking scandal. It always starts with like a banking scandal. There's like 5 steps in between that banking scandal, like the one we had in 2008, and war. And the last step is hot trade wars. Got to turn around from this.
I think we need to be careful when it comes to China. China's a very large country. They outnumber us. And their military is not, it's not like the U.S. military. U.S. military is all volunteer. They're not. They are required to join the military. They're required to serve in the military, and they can outnumber us and they can beat us up pretty quickly.
Yeah, in Korea, I'm sure you know this. In Korea, they sent people with sticks.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
Yeah.
We just couldn't. We didn't have enough bullets to kill them.
And I think that's something that people actually forget. You know, I mean, the United States military were in on total force, it's like 3.1 million, and the prison population actually outnumbers us. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, and those numbers actually change every single year. You know, when the defense budget comes in, you know, we can recruit more people, we can actually take more people out, but the numbers change every year. But our U.S. prison population is more than our U.S. military population. And I don't think people realize that.
I did not.
I had no idea.
We're actually really small. You know, we actually say that we are less than 1%. And we are, I think the last time I ran the numbers, it was like 0.71% of our actual population is in the military, currently activated.
Has there been a decline in that at all?
No, actually since President Trump has taken over, there's been a jump up in the number. We actually got more funding, of course, so with more funding we send soldiers. But I don't think people realize it takes a lot of money to train a soldier. You know, for just a regular Joe Schmo entering into the military, it's $100,000 just to go to training.
And that's not what we're training now.
And that's not what we're training. We're not training to go to war. We're training for sustaining jobs in the military. You know, we're training for urban jobs, you know, because we're in a garrison environment. We're not in a war anymore. But I do think that if we go to war with China, past the trade war, because the final step is that, you know, I think that we would actually suffer greatly, you know, and I think that President Trump needs to at least acknowledge that.
I don't think people think that's possible. You know, I think the general public doesn't look at that and say, oh, that's a real consequence to this.
Trump sent it wasn't a destroyer, it was a troop carrier in between China and Taiwan. They don't take kindly to that. We don't do that. And he sent it as a message. That again goes to the humiliation. They don't forget things like that.
So, and you know, I don't know if you know this at all, but when they send a destroyer, that's the ship that you can actually see on top of the water. With those destroyers, they send about 40 ships underneath the water that they cannot see. You know, and it's because they never send out something by themselves. The Navy does not do that. You know, they'll send the one that you can see on top of the water. Just understand that there's about 50 ships and submarines below it.
All right, back in a minute. Well, that's just slightly terrifying.
Just see this down.
In case you haven't heard, you're living under a rock or whatever, Glenn, you're doing a Christmas show this year.
Yes, haven't done one in probably 8 or 9 years. And I just warn you, if you go, you have to understand every single story, and I mean this, every single story is true. No one believes that. You have to meet my family.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of a diss to your family.
Well, they're crazy. So they're so crazy they don't understand it. They're in the audience going, "Yeah, that's true." It's December 7th. You can get your tickets at glennbeck.com.
Go to glennbeck.com. Hurry up! I know they're selling out. Right?
Yeah, right now we're at, except for the balconies, I think, and the very front, there's just like individual seats, but you can still get, up in the balconies, you can still get some seats together.
So hurry up and go there before they completely sell out. Coming up in overtime, we've got a new poll that's out. Aaron, I saw that you wrote about this on theblaze.com, a new poll that just came out. And well,
what's it on?
It's the Democratic presidential candidates.
Trouble for Biden.
Oh man, it is terrifying. You don't want to miss it. You got to go to BlazeTV.com in order to catch it. We will see you guys there.
Is it an online poll or is it a real quality poll?
I think it's a real.
It's a real.
I feel like anything with Joe Biden is terrifying.